Hello, namaste, and konnichiwa minasan. I welcome you back after the very wonderful session, India, Japan, How Near, How Far, which was on 26th February, where Ambassador Sanjay Kumar Verma, Ambassador of India to Japan, Ambassador Hiroshi Hirabayashi, former Ambassador to India and France, Chairman of JFSS, and Professor Tomohiko Taniguchi, Special Advisor to Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's cabinet. The insights they have shared was so much inspiring and rightly said that it is time to action, not just plan. So we, IJBC, is organizing various events to celebrate the 70th anniversary of diplomatic relationship between India and Japan. We are organizing online events such as lecture series, panel discussions, fireside chat with Shefali, and of course the most awaited event, which is Konnichiwa Pune 2022, supported by Embassy of Japan, Delhi, Consulate General of Japan in Mumbai, Government of India, India-Japan Laboratories, and KU University. So, sponsored by tutorbharat.com, Intergist India, and Daiichi Japanese Language Solutions, Nagpur. So for more details and to watch our prior sessions, please do visit our website, www.ijbc.org. I would request that this session is also on live on IJBC's YouTube channel. So if any technical issues or error happen and you got log out, please join us on YouTube channel. So I usually request everyone that please keep your mics off. And of course, I kindly do so. But today I would like to say that do unmute yourself and interact with our speakers, as we are here with our first panel discussion. So translation, interpretation, career opportunities, and challenges. It is said that translation and interpretation, it is an art of existing in two languages at once. So today we have our panelists who are in this art for more than 15 to 20 years. And it is not an easy task, of course. So without wasting time, let's listen to our panelists. I am your co-host today for this panel discussion, and I would like to introduce Ms. Shefali, member of Indo-Japan Business Council and host of the show Fireside Chat with Shefali, and today's moderator. So Shefali, over to you. Please introduce our panelists and the stage is yours.
Thank you, Dhanashree. Thank you for inviting me and giving me the opportunity for moderating this wonderful session where amazing panelist is here with me. And it's going to be a very great session, I'm sure, because a lot of learning takeaway will be there in this session. So I'm having a panelist. First is Mr. Salil Vaid. Welcome to this wonderful session. Mr. Salil Vaid is a holder of Max Scholarship 1998 and Fellowship 2003, Masters in Japanese from JNU and German language from Pune University, Head of Japan Business Unit at Rikaien Technology. I'm sorry if I pronounced it wrong. And my next panelist is Ms. Yoko Deshmukh, who is a JTF certified freelance translator. My third panelist is Ms. Rumi Joshi, CEO and founder of Fujiwara Japanese Consultant. So welcome all three panelists to this wonderful session on which is all about bilingual directory, all about translation, interpretation, and career opportunities. So I would like to start directly from the questions which I'm having in my mind. And obviously, a lot of people has joined us through Zoom link. So you can also interact with us, ask your doubts, ask your questions and get your doubts clear. So my first question I would like to ask from Ms. Rumi Joshi from Fujiwara Japanese Consultant.
Yes, please.
As an agency of language, what all services you provide? Do you provide corporate training as well?
Yes, so basically, my name is Rumi Joshi and I'm the CEO and founder of Fujiwara Japanese Consultant. Now, we actually started with Japanese interpretation assignments. So I used to do a lot of Japanese interpretation assignments, not only in Mumbai, but used to travel all over India. After that, we we established Fujiwara Japanese Language Institute at Dadar, Mumbai. We have trained more than 2,500 students in Mumbai. And we also do corporate Japanese language training where we go to different companies in Mumbai and we train the employees not only in Japanese language, but also the business management, etiquette, styles, manners. And we also do a lot of events and seminars with Japanese delegates. And we also conduct educational and cultural tours to Japan.
Sure, it's very interesting. Miss Rumi, I also would like to know that if people learn Japanese language or any other language, they are into mind that, okay, now we can do the translator or interpretation. But at the same time, you said that you provide the guidance or training on etiquettes. How important it is to know the etiquettes as well?
It's very, very important to know the Japanese style of working. And as compared to any other language or culture, it's very unbelievable to say that Japanese people are the most polite and etiquetted people in the whole world. So even if you're very fluent in this language and if you don't know their mannerism, etiquettes and all, they might not be able to trust you. So it's very important that not only the language fluency, but their way of style, their etiquettes, manners, everything is important to learn.
So I'm here with Miss Yoko Deshmukh as well, who is a Japanese person. So I would like to know from you that what sort of etiquette you would like to see from a translator or interpreter's perspective. What sort of that etiquette is attractive to a Japanese person?
As a Japanese person, it's in fact like, but I feel the most of the people I meet on my business or work, whoever Indian people who are trained in Japanese language, there I really feel very much surprised that everyone is so polite and well mannered. So I never met such a rude person like who speak Japanese and rude. And so I feel you are perfect, just perfect. Because I think over the course of you learn the language, I think naturally you must be acquiring that because you like Japanese, that's why you are learning Japanese language. So I have never met such rude or late, like being late or like everyone is so surprisingly well. I feel sometimes ashamed that like you are better than me sometimes. So I think so naturally Indian people have you have natural politeness, particularly in work and also for elderly people. So I think that is what it is required. So you are just perfect, I think.
Sure.
I'm sorry if I'm answering properly, but yes.
Yes, it's very important to know from a Japanese person that what sort of behavior or the etiquette one should have if they are planning to move to Japan or working with a Japanese company. So thank you so much for that. Ms. Rumi, one thing more I would, I mean, a lot of people would excited to know that you got the chance to interpret for PM Modi, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
So please tell something about that, your experience, and how you got this opportunity as well, because it's a wonderful and big opportunity.
Yes, so when I started doing my interpretation assignment, actually there were very less interpreters in this field, especially in Mumbai. There are very less interpreters, and me and my father were selected to do the interpretation for our Honorable Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi at the Vibrant Gujarat 5th Global Summit, which was held in 2011. So it was at Gandhinagar, Gujarat, and it was a very good experience for us because we generally do interpretation where it's generally for exhibitions, business meetings and all, but doing a simultaneous interpretation for such an important assignment where it's very, the speech is very important and all. So it was a very good experience where each language person, each language interpreter was given a cabin. And the stage was down below the cabin and we were given microphones. But I would actually say that simultaneous interpretation I felt was actually quite difficult, honestly speaking, because the way the fast they speak, the moment you speak and you hardly have any chance to listen and speak at the same time, you have to listen and speak at the same time. So it went really well. It was a good experience, but I would say that simultaneous interpretation among all the types of interpretation is slightly difficult as compared. So me and my father were selected, I would like to share a very hilarious thing. Everybody was speaking mostly in English, and in Hindi was there, it was much easier because Japanese is very much like Hindi. And but a hilarious thing was, there was this lady who was dancing on the Hum Dil De Chuke Sanam Nimbuda song, and my father was translating the entire song from that Hindi song to Japanese, and the meaning was becoming very, very hilarious. It was a very fun, and in fact, after the interpretation, the Japanese delegate asked the organizer that who is the interpreter. He made really good interpretation of the song. So these kind of experience you get to know.
Sure. Before I come to Mr. Salil, I'm sure Dhanashree is having some question related to simultaneous interpretation, if I'm not wrong. So
yes, that's correct. My question is to both Mr. Rumi and Mr. Salil Sensei, that when you do simultaneous interpretation, you're not allowed to speak, first thing. When we do consecutive, we can ask back whether we could not understand or we could not hear it properly. But when simultaneous is there, we have to go ahead anyway. But when speaker speaks the same thing in repeated manner or in, ghuma fira ke, what kind of guidance or what kind of tips would you like to give us while doing this kind of interpretation?
Yes. So I remember, I was doing an interpretation for also a musician, which was also kind of a simultaneous interpretation. Is, as you said, they speak, and on the spot you have to do the translation. So as I said earlier, it is the most difficult type of interpretation. And we generally take a notebook and pen, to write it down. But the speed is so fast that, you don't even get time to write and all, just have to on the spot say. So I remember I did an interpretation for a very famous musician who had come music. There was a music conference, and there were all the delegates of different countries which had a very different accent. There were some people from German, and also that to catch up that accent was also a very challenging thing for me. So yes, so I think the best way is to keep it simple. They will say in a very high funda accent voice, but the best thing is to use simple words, and as long as the meaning is expressed to the opposite person, is what is, it actually is the main thing. So yes.
So I would like to know your opinion as well, Mr. Salil, because there must be some of the experience of yours as well, which you can share with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Am I audible?
Yes.
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me here today. It's a nice opportunity for sure, for me as well as for everybody to listen to all the panelists for sure. To start, I might differ a bit from what Rumi-san said, because in my case, if I say if my memory is not very good, probably, for example, for such people, simultaneous interpretation can be a boon actually. I definitely understand, appreciate what Rumi-san says, because simultaneous interpretation definitely requires its own skills and a definitely different kind of practice for sure. But I'll come to that maybe. There is no reason to get bogged down by the concept of simultaneous interpretation as such, because if you try, then probably you might end up finding it easier than consecutive. In case of consecutive, you have to take notes, and note taking in case of consecutive is very, very tedious job, and it has to be learned. So I was in JNU and we had interpretation for both the years, 2 years, and I got opportunities to learn it from a maestro of that field, Motwani Sensei. So I could learn interpretation from him. So note taking was a different subject itself, actually, in a way. So we started doing note taking for consecutive interpretation. And then for simultaneous interpretation as such, there was no class, but then I bumped against such opportunities. And then when I started doing simultaneous interpretation, I thought that probably I'm more inclined toward doing simultaneous interpretation than consecutive. Because as I said, if you're not very sure about your memory, and if you're not very sure about your summarizing skills, then simultaneous interpretation is kind of, you listen and you just express yourself. But of course, I mean, it's easier said than done. As Rumi-san also rightly said, it requires its own skill set and vocabulary. The power of vocabulary is very much important. Phrases, for example, so you really have to have everything on your fingertips. Otherwise, it becomes so very challenging to say that into Japanese or into English, whatever the target language may be. But I mean, if in the audience, if we do have people who are wondering if simultaneous interpretation is challenging or difficult, then yes, definitely it is challenging. But then there is no harm trying it, and it might be a case that you probably start thinking that, in fact, it is there for you. Yeah.
Yes.
Apart from, I mean, today's session, this session being not exactly about interpretation techniques, I don't want to touch upon those things, technical things as such, but I mean, overall, that's my impression about simultaneous interpretation, and not just impression, but experience as well. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for sharing your opinion as well. Dhanashree, anything else you want to ask about this?
No, thank you. Thank you for giving the opportunity.
Thank you, Dhanashree, for this wonderful question as well, because a lot of people will understand about this also, the difference between simultaneous interpretation. Okay, Mr. Salil, this one conception in the society, like if you are learning a language, then definitely you must want to be an interpreter or the translator. It's a misconception. But if you are in certain background industry, like you are from B.Tech background, or you have already done the MBA or doing that, then learning a language, what benefit one can get with that? Because you are from technical background.
Okay, right. So see, there are lots of benefits. First, the language is a means of communication, so we should start there. And interpretation and translation is just one way you use that means. But if you don't want to go for interpretation or translation, and that's absolutely not mandatory, as you rightly said, many think that only, I mean, there are avenues only in the translation or in the interpretation or probably in teaching field, but that's absolutely not the case. As I said, learning language is, you are basically learning a new way to communicate with a completely different set of people. And when you learn the language, you also learn the culture. There was some mention of the cultural aspect as well toward the start of this session. So all this becomes a package, and then you become a better and effective communicator if you know the language better. So if you are an MBA, for example, if you are in the management side, then managing things, managing your clients, managing projects become very easy. Let's not, I mean, confine the scope only to interpretation or translation or maybe teaching. There are so many other opportunities. And for technical people, of course, I mean, technical people need to read specs, for example, specifications of software, or they need to read manuals, for example, or hardware related thing, and then they need to decipher it and then convert it into something meaningful that they are trying to create on their own. So there also the language expertise comes into picture for sure. So that's what I can comment right now, if that answers your question.
Yes, definitely.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yoko-san, there's one thing I would like to know from your point of view, means from translator's point of view. What are the things one should keep in mind while or should consider while translating the documents from source language to target language?
So many things, like, means I have to admit that I am also far from perfect. Every day it's learning, and many times I'm scolded by customer. So so you didn't understand this particular place and such. But then first thing is that for anything, not only translation, it might be, but translation is the one which I really love doing it. So for me, it's about what you say, you love doing it. You love doing it means you are always ready to listen to people, and then you are always ready to improve. So always ready to learn. So so it's a whole life effort for any work. I think it's not only about translation, but about the translation, it's so now Sariru-san and Rumi-san, both of them talk about interpretation, right? And then so for every field, you need to have some knowledge for interpretation. But about translation, because you are given full set of document and you are given full time. Sometimes it's short, but full time, which means you need to very much go into the depth of the document, which means not only written, what Google Translate to do, right? Just surface thing, replacing word to word. So it's not that, but you need to really learn, study, and so such kind of, so such hunger for knowledge, hunger for. So a translation means you may be thinking a translation means, okay, very much in the near future, Google Translate will come, some mechanical thing, like a robot kind of things will come and translators will no longer required. But in that kind of translation might be not required, but there will be always a human required for the translation. But to be the one, such people who will live long and then do the career or whole career, you need to keep running and you need to keep investing, not only yourself, but also dictionaries. Dictionaries are so much important for translation. Sometimes some dictionaries really cost, but you need to buy it and you need to invest in that. And of course, there are many kind of, we call it CAT tool, we call it CAT tool. So that is for the assistance of the translation, which is particularly, so when you are working for same customer, then you have always the same terminology which customer follows. So that CAT tools, sometimes it costs, some CAT tool cost, so such kind of investment is required. So at which point of your career, for what do you invest, such kind of things also you need to prepare. So so overall, so translation means more so what you can buy a skill you can buy is the dictionaries and CAT tool, and then the skill you cannot buy by money, but you have to build also there. So so such things are there. So but very much interesting work. It is very, very much interesting work, and I really love doing it. So I'm doing marketing translation, which is more like a creative writing is required. So creative writing means, when something, for example, this morning only we were a little bit talking with my friend. I was talking in Japanese, when we are meeting somebody first time, hajimemashite, we say hajimemashite. And then it is in English, it is nice to meet you. And nice to meet you is not exactly hajimemashite, it is. And then so in Hindi, I don't know, in Hindi it is namaste. Namaste is hajimemashite. I don't know. Up something. I don't know. like like hajimemashite and nice to meet you is kind of typical example. Like nice to meet you. If I try to translate word to word, it's very strange Japanese. Nobody will use that. So that is a very simple example. But like a marketing translation is more like a culture background. So when I'm translating in English, then I need to know which is the target country, like Britain, US, Singapore, wherever. And if it is Japan, then okay, so this is written in Britain, but then in Japanese market, I have to rewrite like this. So very interesting, very interesting. And I'm sure like most of the people who are learning Japanese, you are almost already in your brain that, okay, Japan is like this country. And then so I will write like for Japanese people, when I need to sell the product for Japanese market, I have to write like this. So very interesting career, and you don't need to worry much about this machine and such things will replace your work if you are very much serious about the career.
So one more question to you. One individual think that he or she became a good translator?
When one feel?
One can feel, yeah.
Oh, that's hardly I don't feel. So I don't think.
No, there's a reason, because sometimes it happens that a student who learned the greetings or some of the phrases, they just start, oh, I know Japanese language. So because of that reason, I want to know, one can feel that, okay, now it's at least a baby step I have taken. I can translate the language.
Then I have one suggestion. If you want to ensure, then you make one friend, Japanese friend. Like if you want to become a translator, right? And then you Japanese friend who knows both language, English, Japanese, and then you translate any small phrase every day, and then show it to that friend. How does it look? Does it look natural? Will Japanese people will not feel it is so that is maybe every day that's practice, very much simple, but it's very powerful, very critical friend you get. No, it's not good, or like no, it's not translation, like so then so finally one day that person is, oh, you are doing good, like so maybe because it's like a everyday practice, and if you like doing it, then you will be one step closer to being a very good translator. So everyday effort, every day maybe you can translate first one sentence or one phrase, proverb or whatever you find, and you translate and you send to a friend who understand both very fluent. How does it look like? And then, oh no, it's not good. Like, do it again. Then so every day you do it, and then one day you may be feeling, oh, I'm good. Like, maybe friend you can make. I can become your friend, of course.
Thank you for being my friend.
I'm very sorry. I very much I pushed my time. I'm sorry. I hope
it's okay.
I'm answering the questions.
But thank you for this wonderful, that you gave that point that if you want to be a good translator or interpreter, you should have one Japanese friend.
Yo.
So that's it will definitely would help. So
definitely Sariru-san and Rumi-san also best friend. That Sariru-san, Rumi-san is also means, in fact, Sariru-san and Rumi-san are better because they know not only you know English, you know Hindi, you know Marathi. Rumi-san know Marathi.
No, I'm no Gujarati, Hindi.
Gujarati. Oh. So Gujarati, you know Gujarati. So is such Sariru-san, Rumi-san like friend.
Right.
Sorry, thank you.
So, Ms. Rumi, I want to know that as an agency, you hire a fresher as well, or just an experienced people based on my question that how one can feel that he or she is a good translator now?
Yes, so basically we don't do recruitment as such, but we are in touch with a lot of Japanese delegates, like as we do interpretation with them. So they always send us an email to search for Japanese language experts from our institute. So those who are in the who have completed level 3 and level 2, we definitely forward their profiles to them who are looking for jobs. And in that way, we have recruited many students, not only in India, in Mumbai, but to Japan as well. So basically, I have also experienced where students without giving any JLPT exam, but as long as their fluency is very good, they have still got a job. So at the end of the day, the fluency matters a lot. Your knowledge of word is very important, not only the certificates. And as per your question, how does a student feels confident whether he is able to do or not? So we do give opportunities to our students when there is a kind of an easy kind of assignment where there is, for example, a Japanese friend of mine wants to go for a tour. So I tell my students it's a good opportunity to interact with these Japanese people. You will also come to know where you stand. They will give your feedback. So these kind of opportunities we do give. And once the student is fine, and as Yoko-san said, to make Japanese friends is a very good way to know how fluent you are and all. And in our class also, like when we train students, like unlike any other institutes, one thing I confidently can say is we focus more on the conversation part. We do a lot of sentence. We don't do bookish knowledge, because JLPT is more into kanji writing and MC, multiple choice question. So we are in our institute, most of my students, when they reach up to level 3, they are able to make sentences and able to speak and all. And when a Japanese person speaks with them on the phone, like I have not given any JLPT exam. I have learned Japanese naturally because I was brought up in Japan. So when I go for a freelancing assignment, what the Japanese person do is, Japanese people don't even know what JLPT is. They're only concerned about how well you speak in Japanese language. So they'll take an interview of you on the phone. And if you think they are good enough to do the assignment, they will select you. So at the end of the day, I know certificates are necessary to get a job in a company, but at the end of the day, what actually makes you successful in this field is your word knowledge, your business way of working with them, and very importantly, how fluent you are in this language, vocabulary wise.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, Salil-san, right now you are heading a Japanese company business unit in India. So, how is your experience with the Japanese company, and do you think that your knowledge in Japanese language is actually helping you to run a business?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said earlier, I'm using my Japanese language as the communication tool daily, day in, day out. And that's the reason why I'm heading the unit as well, because all of our clients are from Japan, because necessarily I'm heading the Japan territory. So all the business comes from Japan. And as you know, when it comes to the business, Japanese definitely need people who understand good Japanese. So being able to speak good Japanese, write good Japanese, understand good Japanese, that's helping me a lot in my day-to-day business. And in fact, that is helping me to retain the clients as well, because I can give them that comfort level. I was in Japan for more than 8 years. I think I know the culture as well, and I have been working only with Japanese so far. I rather know how Japanese people work more than how anybody else in the world works. So I somehow think that I understand completely how the Japanese working style is. And so through the knowledge of Japanese language and the business culture, I try to give that peace of mind to my clients. So yes, definitely these things are working. Yeah.
And what is your opinion on like how or when can a person think that they are a good translator or interpreter now?
Okay, it's a very there are two approaches. One is a very technical approach. One is a very scientific approach. By scientific approach, I mean at least you should know all the basic grammar patterns as a foreigner, of course. I mean, if you are able to conveniently handle things like sase raredu and all such things, right? Causative passive, for example, which can be the epitome of the Japanese grammar in a way. If you are able to understand those intricacies, then at least the scientific part has been done. So you need not worry whether you are understanding it or not. And then secondly, after you have learned it for maybe 2 to 3 years, take up any news, for example, from NHK News and run it at 2x speed, for example. Okay, so right now we are speaking at a particular speed, right? And the announcers also, news readers also speak at their particular natural speed. But then if you run it at 2x, and if you are still able to understand what they're saying, and if you are still able to comprehend what they're saying, then that is a nice indication of your level of comprehending the language. But if you're not able to do that, then take it from me that you are still not ready for interpretation or a translation. Because, well, a translation is just, writing things, interpretation is spoken, but for both of these, comprehending things is very, very important. And unless you comprehend, it's not possible. And thirdly, I strongly feel that you should have a very good sense of humor. Because the sense of humor is a nice indication of your mastery on the language itself, actually. People who unfortunately do not have the sense of humor, that means that they are not able to understand the reading between the lines things. Because understanding humor requires a different skill altogether. And if you have the sense of humor, if you are able to understand satire, for example, or if you are able to understand subtle things, for example, it may not be in the target language as such to start with. You can start from your mother tongue. In your mother tongue, if you are able to create humor, if you are able to appreciate humor, then take it from me that your path toward a successful translator or interpreter is already set. You just have to travel on that. Thanks.
Miss Rumi wants to say something, I guess.
Yes, one more thing my father always adds to me, like since both my parents had gone as a cultural exchange student 33 years back, so he was working and living in Japan since last 33 years, but it was not only working in a Japanese company for 33 years, where he actually had learned formal language, the way of working with people. The formal language is different and the informal language is different. So he used to tell me that during his cultural exchange days, when he was studying in a hostel in Japan, he even used to, for his pocket money, he used to work at a pub in Japan. So pub mein jo language bolte ho, the language that you use in the pub, the fighting that they do. And in fact, these are the things that you also should know. As Salil Sal rightly said, you have to be hilarious with them, because once the work is done, Japanese people will ask you several questions about Japanese culture. Like I remember anything, like for example, one person was giving Ashirwad. And he's like, what is he doing? Now you should know everything. It's not only work related. You should know knowledge of even the informal things. Like what is mantra called in Japanese? What is Ashirwad called in Japanese? Japanese people is asking me, okay, what is the person eating pan in the, he's eating pan. And how do I say that? What is pan in Japanese? So it is not only about, how many years you have worked in a Japanese company, how many, like the work culture, the business language that you know. Agar aapko Japanese se baat karna hai, out of the work, you also have to be very friendly with them. You also should know informal language. Like my father, as he said, he was working in the pub. So usko informal language mein, like kam ko kite kudasai bolenge. But in Kenkabe, when you fight, they say kora. So you should also be knowing that as well. So it's not informal and formal languages, both very important to know. Like, yeah, so it's very important.
Just one thing, if you allow me to add, maybe
Sure.
this will help the audience as well, probably. How do you start? You said, how do you know that you are confident? One more thing is, go to, after learning the language for 2 to 3 years, take Japanese people to some museum, for example. So that's how I learned the art of interpretation. So whenever Japanese used to come to Pune, there were only two options: either take them to Sinhagad Fort, maybe, or any other tourist spot, for example, or then take them to a museum. And nobody wished to take them to a museum, because then in a museum you have to explain a lot. But then I was always ready. Initially, it was very, very tough. But then I was always ready. I always volunteered the museum part and took all Japanese to a couple of museums that we have in Pune. And there, I used to explain them the entire museum. And so what happened, museum, as you know, has so many different things exhibiting there, right? So you have to know that vocabulary, you have to build that vocabulary, and then you have to use proper structures to tell those things. So, and then it's also a kind of benkyo study for yourself as well, because as an interpreter or as a translator, you should be very, very well read as well. Unless you have read a lot, if you are not a voracious reader, then you are just not going to make it for sure. So at least in a month, you have to read 2 to 3 books is what I think, as an interpreter or as a translator. So I jokingly say I have coined this phrase, if it helps, for example. So what is an interpreter, or what is a translator? It is a jack of all trades, but master of 2 languages. So a translator or an interpreter is jack of all trades, knows everything, a bit about everything, but has mastered at least 2 languages. So that's how your approach has to be. Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. So, okay, coming to this, that working in a pub or taking people to the museum would definitely help the individual for learning, getting more into the language. Yoko-san, I want to know that being a translator, how you approach the clients, or how clients approach to you for translation work.
Thank you. Yeah, in fact, really, I was very much like indulging in this Rumi-san and Sariru-san's saying, like really right, like you are very right. Like, so I was just feeling, so I was suddenly so actually, like a translation is, as you say, like it is a screen in front of you, and like it is a whole day alone, like very much lonely sometimes, because it's not like that. Like surrounded by people, so marketing is very much key, definitely. So, but for my case, like in fact, so like this is in fact I have given to you in my profile also that when I was living in Japan in my early time, like when I was in the early 20s, so that time I wanted to become a translator, but I was not sure whether anybody will hire me or not. So I was, in fact, I sent a couple of companies for my CV, but of course, like as Rumi-san also said, Japanese company want, most of the Japanese people who want to do some English related work, TOEIC is the examination, TOEIC. In fact, that TOEIC is nothing. In fact, TOEIC cannot evaluate the translation skill. TOEIC is so surface. But most of the Japanese company at that time needed TOEIC some mark. So, and I didn't have that kind of examination experience or nothing. So nobody was hiring me. So, but then luckily I came to India. Really, it was really fortunate move that I came to Pune. And then I was then coming to Pune because I was not so many Japanese people in Pune at that time. Now also not so many Japanese people, but at that time there was much less Japanese people. So some company hired me as a translator. Actually, no experience. Just I can speak Japanese and little bit English. Then they felt handy about me. So they hired me. So then I worked for that company for 8 years, and then during these 8 years, really good colleague, means everyone was so nice people, very professional people. So so the building the relation. Then so by that time, 8 years is complete. I was having a bit of confidence, like, okay, now I want to become freelancer. So from that circle, initially I was like slowly getting contact So like my colleague introduced me because they come to know that I'm going to be independent. So then from that I slowly built. But then now mostly I do the what is it? Online, there's online directory for translator. I think IJBC also building, I guess, right? So that online directory, I usually put some of them are paid. Some of them are yearly. You need to pay. One is costing me 14,000 Indian rupee per year. 14,000 Indian rupee, but it pay you back really. It has very quality customer. They keep introducing me. So 14,000 rupee per year. Another one is prose.com. One 14,000 is Japanese one Amelia called Amelia I think I will share afterward. Amelia that is Japanese, and another is prose. That cost around $200 per year for professional member. And so from that, all over the world, people who need Japanese English translation or sometimes interpretations, of course, interpretation assignment also come. But rate is usually such prose via prose rate is a bit low. So you need to initially accept with the lower rate, but then you can build up your skill and then you can increase the rate. But I feel nowadays, so mostly, so nowadays I'm working for overseas company outside India. But nowadays I realize that Indian companies also need a very good quality translators. So and then they are ready to pay me the international rate also. So it's good. Like Indian market is coming up, and international market rate is coming down. So it's good. Like for Indian translator, like you are in a very much good, I think, good time to earn like being freelancer.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, Ms. Rumi, I want to know from you that being an agency, there are certain people who are fresher in this field. So how they can gain the experience, because a lot of companies want that the person or the employee should be experienced enough of 2 or 3 years. So if they don't get the chance, then how they can gain the experience?
Very good question, actually. But as per my experience, the students which I have made them recruit, get a job, actually, honestly speaking, they are very. I don't know about Pune, Chennai, Bangalore, Delhi has lots and lots of Japanese speaking people, but in Mumbai it is very, very less. So the demand is more. I remember some companies calling up saying that Mumbai we are unable to find a good interpreter, so they are ready to hire even without an experience. So I have recruited students without an experience and with a very good salary, actually. All they had level 3 and level 2 certificates, and currently also they are working online and without any experience. So I think, so with the work, when they work, they will get the experience as well. But I don't think I'm I'm not a recruiter, so not the right person to give an answer on this. But without an experience, still you can get a work, because there are very less people who know this language. So people know that when they are recruiting. So as a Japanese person will take an interview, and if they feel that they are right for the job, so they get recruited.
Sure, thank you. I think Dhanashree must be having a question related to the commercial and the difference between the translation or interpretation in India and Japan.
Yes, thank you, Shefali, again. So my question is to Yoko-san. So what is the different, you can think that being translator as a Japanese, being translator in Japan and being translator in India, how it is different, quality wise and commercial rate wise, how it differs?
Being a translator, no difference, of course, like no difference, like India also, Japan also, same kind of quality is required. So like about that. So it's no difference, but one thing is that like one very good episode I can share, that in the beginning of Corona outbreak, this pandemic, in the beginning I was in Pune, right? And then it was March, so like lockdown, like, then after that, then world economy almost halted, right? Suddenly. I think about 3 to 4 weeks, I think suddenly things stopped in all over the world, right? Then at that time, I was in Pune, and I also was very much impacted. Like until March, I was getting normal business, normal flow business. Then suddenly in April, I became zero income, almost zero income. Not zero, but almost zero. And then but I was imagining if I were in Japan, then I would be very much in difficulty because no income. Then how to live, how to pay for the rent, and how to pay the food and so. But thanks to that, being in India, cost of living is very, very less, particularly when it comes to Pune, and vegetable. If you are eating at home, vegetables and things are not so expensive. And also, anyway, that time we were locked down. During lockdown, we didn't have any option to buy things, only available things we had to buy. So I didn't feel any pressure. Okay, so business is not there. So okay, I will start studying. Better I will start studying for my skills. So I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel any pressure. But if I were in Japan, then definitely I would have felt much pressure. That suddenly lost the job. And so I seriously, after that, I started thinking I should have some sort of insurance, like there's labor insurance, freelancer insurance, that when you lost the job, like for example, you become sick sometime, right? So sometimes you can meet the accident and sometimes you cannot work. Then that time, some insurance cover your income, certain percentage of your regular income. That is based on the calculation, like tax calculation, they do that, like average monthly. So that about so like difficulty in Japan is you need to maintain sort of a certain flow of business. So you will be under more pressure. But one thing is that if you want to become a translator in Japan, then maybe you better work for some translation company or trading company who constantly require translation. So better being hired by a company. And being in India, you have really choice, like you can be hired by a company. But I really recommend that for the people who are entering this career, first better you work for some company, and then so that you can gain the experience and you will be having a network, also like you will be building trust among the colleague. And then so once you be independent, then they will be always ready to help you. So that's things.
Thank you. My same question I would like to ask Salil Sensei. Do you have any comment on this?
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. Okay. Well, frankly speaking, there are two approaches, and usually companies take two approaches when sharing the revenue with the translators. And then again, if we talk from the company perspective, then companies have two models basically. One is in-house force, they hire translators or interpreters, and one is the vendor ecosystem that they develop. And the rates differ for these two models. So that is one big model, and these two sub parts of it. And second model is some companies consider the price structure of that particular country, and then accordingly give rates to the translators or interpreters. So companies can retain more profit and give lesser to interpreters and translators if the translator or the interpreter comes from a country where the price structure is different, right? And but some companies are also there that do not care about which country the translator or the interpreter comes from. They straight away give 50 to 60% of their total revenue for that project to the translator or interpreter. So these are two big approaches that companies usually take. And you should always go after companies that straight away give you the 50% of whatever revenue they get for that particular project or assignment from their client, and not after the companies that keep their secured bigger profit with them and give only a chunk to the translator or interpreter according to the price structure of that country. So that kind of an injustice actually. So if that kind of an injustice is happening, then that's not a good thing. Are you able to hear me? Maybe there is some network issue.
Yes.
Is fine.
Yes. Thank you, Sensei.
Sure.
I would like to ask counter question on that, Sensei. As you said that there are two parts of a revenue system, the company which gives 50% to you, you should go for that. But sometimes you don't get to know that how much exactly the client is getting and how much exactly we are getting. And like after the payment or after some days, you get to know that we have not paid well. So how we can differ that thing, or how we can understand?
Yeah, absolutely. As a translator or as an interpreter, it is our responsibility not to get exploited, actually. And by that, I mean that if you know how much money you need for 1 month, okay, then you should never ever go below that just to secure projects. Because that creates a bad environment, that creates a bad practice as well. And so you should never ever go below that rate. So anything that you're getting above that rate, that means that company is considerate and giving the 50% or almost 60% of their actual revenue to you. So that's the benchmark. Actually. So if you are more than satisfied with the rate in the first place, then you should take it from me that the company is treating you well. So basically, the most logical thing is you should never ever go below the rate that you have decided for yourself to lead a nice, logical life, actually.
Right. Thank you, Sensei. So, Rumi-san, do
Unless
you have
working
any
for a
comment
friend.
as an agency part?
I'm so sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, actually, we work as Japanese interpreter on freelance basis. I myself work on freelance basis. So we have a fixed rate, like for 8 hours, for example, 8 hours, it's for example, 8,000 rupees for 8 hours. And if it is more than 8 hours, 1 hour, 500 rupees extra. And we also have our conditions of our company like GST, invoice GST, there would be a fixed GST amount on the total amount. And within 15 days, the payment should come to us. So if that fair practice and if everything is communicated with each parties, then accordingly the big companies and they pay us very well according to what we ask for. So I have never found any injustice, and they also give us transportation, flight. Even I've been not only in Mumbai, I have even traveled to Japan for interpretation. For example, I have taken 28 Jindal Steel engineers for our engineering training to Fukuyama, Japan, for example. So while we are going with them, right from the hotel accommodation, flight charges, even the sightseeing, everything is with them, even the lunch. So they have a package, and they even give a pocket money for that everyday expenses. So I believe Japanese people are the best payers in the market, because I have heard that other language people call me up and say that Chinese interpreters and all get only 2,000 per day, and for Japanese people they pay at least minimum 8 to 10,000 per day for interpretation assignment on freelance basis. So I have not faced any such injustice, or they don't do payment. In fact, they are the best payers in the market, and as compared to any other languages. So this was something to do with freelancing. But now when you go for a work, like we are getting hired by a company as a in-house translator, interpreter, then they all have their contractual this thing that monthly they will be getting this and that and that. So everything is decided. So I don't think there's any, I'm not sure. This is what I have actually come across, but I have not seen that, maybe I don't know, it depends on person to person. So, right.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Shefali. You are on mute, Shefali.
Sorry. So thank you for this question, because a lot of people will get to know a deeper knowledge in Japanese language or interpreter and translation. Mr. Salil, I got to know that you are working on Japanese language or language tool. So what is it all about?
Right. Yeah, thanks. So my company, we have developed a tool, and there was a mention of CAT by Yoko. So Yoko talked about CAT. So that is a computer aided translation tool, or computer assisted translation tool, whatever you may want to call it. So basically, it started very easy. CAT is a concept that is not very new to the industry. CAT has been there for more than 2 to 3 decades now. So initially, CAT was there to tackle the productivity problems. Because what CAT does is, if you're translating the same kind of stuff, then it keeps on giving you the repetitions, for example, that you have already translated or somebody else has translated for that particular project. And that way you can leverage or reuse the already available data. And so this basically ensures 2 things. One is productivity, as I said, and one is quality consistency. So your quality is consistent with what you or what was already translated. So that's how CATs started. And in my company, Rikayan, we also first developed a CAT. Not many Indian companies have done that actually. So we have developed our own CAT. And then we have now moved on to the next level. So it's not just CAT, but now it's a comprehensive tool where you can just drag and drop a video file, for example. Because as you know, video content is getting created a lot, and video is becoming the video data is becoming the next oil kind of thing, right? For this world. Now the tool is capable enough to translate videos just by dragging them onto the platform. So you just drag the video onto the platform, drag and drop it on the platform, and the tool will take care of most of the things that are required to translate a video. And of course, some human element is required to keep a tab on what the machine has done. And then because some level of transcreation is required as far as video translation is concerned, may it be title, caption, Jimaku translation, or voiceover. All such things are now possible in the tool. And so far, what used to happen, translators, till date as well, people have been translating videos. Not that suddenly video translation is a sudden emergence. It's not the case, of course. But then people had to go to different systems to get things done, or to different vendors probably, or to different companies to get things done that are part of the entire life cycle of a project, video translation. But in our platform, what we have done is right from creating the script automatically till creating the final video, which has the captions on it, as well as the voiceover of the target language. It's all possible under one single umbrella. So that kind of tool we have built. And yes, that's the tool actually.
Sure. One thing more, there's a word that voiceover. So I come to the question that what is your opinion for translation of literature, novel or poetry sort of documents, and what is the opportunity for people in voiceover things?
Yeah, right. So both for translation and interpretation, there are lots of opportunities now. Video translation, as I said, videos of different types. It can be just movies, or edutainment related videos, or videos that talk about certain product, for example, software product, for example. Such videos, or now webinars are getting generated. So in Japan also, lots of webinars happen on a daily basis, and they need to be disseminated to the world. and these need to be translated overnight. For example, if a webinar takes place today, then it needs to get translated overnight such that it can be disseminated or released tomorrow, such that there is hardly any time loss in between. So for all these things, voiceover is required for sure. So if you're a trained voiceover artist, then you have a big career for sure in this industry. In fact, our company also is in constant search of good voiceover artists. And there is a dearth of it actually, unfortunately. We do not get many good voiceover artists for sure. So voiceover is a nice career in the translation field. And yeah, that was the question, right? There was some other part to it. Have I covered it, or have I missed it?
Translation of literature.
Right, sorry, yeah. The main thing is, translation of literature. See, business-wise, translation of literature may not be that lucrative because, forget translation. Even if you write an original book, you will not get much money because not much money comes to the writer or author of the book, because this is a completely different ecosystem. And the money gets distributed to all the stakeholders actually, and the author gets only a small part of it, a pie, basically, right? So that for original writing. So if you're translating and publishing it, then forget about getting money. You definitely cannot live on that for sure. But then, as I said earlier, literature can be a nice jumping pad, basically, to become a technical translator or an interpreter, because when you translate literature, you are getting deeper into the language. And if you are able to translate literature, that means you understand the humor, you understand the pathos, and all those moods that literature captures, basically. So if you're able to translate that into a completely different culture, say, for example, English to Japanese or Japanese to English, or any Indian language for that matter, then that means that you have mastered the language itself, and now you are ready to take up a career as a professional translator. So don't be, dismayed by the business part of it. Take it as a net practice to become a professional translator, is what I can say. And so today as well, on a daily basis almost, I keep on translating something or the other. So I pick up any poem from Marathi, for example, or Hindi or English, and try translating that into Japanese, or vice versa, for example, or translating haiku, for example, or all such things. So if you keep on doing that, then your confidence in the language itself will boost.
Sure. So Rumi, Ms. Rumi, what's your opinion on this? Because being the owner of the agency, you must have received the offers for translating a novel or literature.
Yes, we do not do translation projects at all. We only take up interpretation assignments. The reason why is, it is my personal opinion. I'm like everybody would be different here, but translation projects took a lot of time. It was very, very time consuming, and there were so many kanjis which I actually found it very time consuming and difficult as well, especially if it's a medical or a food industry. Even if it's a little mistake, it becomes a huge this thing. So we haven't taken any translation assignments as yet. We were getting offers of doing translation, but we were doing more of interpretation assignments. Yeah. So kanjis is not, I'm not trying to dismotivate anyone out here. Translation you can do, like if you have a level 3, level 2 certificate, you can translate a normal email and all. There are many things that you can translate. It's not a difficult task, but we haven't done that. We haven't taken that assignment. Yeah.
And Yoko, Miss Yoko, what about you?
Sorry. Sorry. What was the question?
The question is
sorry.
Translation of literature, how viable it is.
Yes, translation of literature. Yes, that Sariru-san said was correct. Like so, but in translation of literature, one very good part is your name will be people. Because usually that translation of a book, then definitely they will write the author's name and then translator's name. So money is less, but your name will be known. So and then of course. I think somebody's mic was yeah. So this so that your name will be known, but very much interesting. Like in fact, I keep trying this literature translation contest in Japan. Many publishers keep hiring new literature translator. I like always applying. It's very much a hard task. It is usually 2 to 3 days and 50 pages of book I have to translate. 50 page first 50 page of some book, and given time is 2-3 days, so almost you need to be all night to do the translation, and most of the time I'm rejected actually. So but it's very fun, very fun. So that fun factor is there, and then if you are lucky and if you are hired, then your name will be so like so Shai Fari, like translated by Shai Fari, like so such, and your name will be known. So that's good part. But about money, yes, money. So maybe not for money, but so like money you can earn with something else, like industry translation we call it. So that it is a constant flow, like as Sariru-san said. Nowadays, subtitle translations are many. In fact, really high demand. Really, it's very high demand. So like subtitles, like so company corporate presentation, or of course like this IT industry also, they need all the time many documents to translate and so on. So for that you earn money. Money will be coming from that, and then for this publishing and literature and such things, you keep on trying the contest. It's very much interesting, like because you don't have any obligation, but it's just commitment to yourself, right? Like I want to submit that, so that at least they will check my translation. But mostly rejected. But it's good. But then like Sariru-san, like I want to know what Sariru-san. Oh yeah, Sariru-san gave the titles here. Wow. So he translated many books. So I want to take help of his books to learn Marathi, and definitely. So, but very much interesting. Yes, thank you.
So one more question.
Sorry, Shefali, to jump in. I would like to ask Yoko-san one question about, as we are connected to you. Could you please tell us about AskSiddhi.com, what it is and how did you start it?
AskSiddhi is like I started when I decided to shift to India. At that time, I was living in Japan, and then I decided I married to Indian person. And then, so initially we were living in Japan, but then we decided to shift to India. So, but then at that time on internet, there was not many information about India. And bookshop means mostly guidebook or some funny book like Ganga, or India means curry, or India means Ganga or yoga or something. But what I wanted to know was more like authentic information of India and most up-to-date information. So I searched, but I didn't find. So maybe in Japanese, what I mean is, so and then that time, so it was 2003. 2003 is almost 2 decades back, right? 2 decades back. So I just keep picking up any news from India, which I wanted to know. Like, oh, this is very interesting news. So when I feel interesting, means some people may also be interested. I didn't have any purpose, but I just started translation, and then so that became my hobby. And so just I'm doing now also it is my hobby. Just I don't expect earning any money from it. I don't even put advertisement on it, and so it's a hobby, but it become like a practice for me, like translation. And also sometimes so like so I do the study for a lot of study is required when translating some news. So that is very interesting, and so that anyone can do, like anyone can do. Now in this time. So thank you for mentioning about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, so my question was for Salil, Mr. Salil, that you did interpretation also, and translation as well. Means how difficult it is, because sometimes it happens that if people learn a language, they opt either for interpretation or either for this translation. But how difficult it is for a single or individual person to do both the things?
Both the things in their own way are difficult. Actually, they have their own challenges. So, but then see, sometimes people don't like to type much or write much. They can be good translators, but they are lazy, for example. And but they have good command on the language. They have good general knowledge. So such people then tend to go for interpretation because they don't want to get stuck into the computer work, for example. For example, Rumi-san, as she also said, I mean, there are so many things around translation. I mean, you need to do project management and then quality assurance and quality check control, for example, and the slightest of mistake can, I mean, ruin you, for example, ruin your business, for example. So if you are not that kind of a person, then actually the interpretation can be a nice field for you. But then in my case, luckily, I kept on doing the both, and I kept on enjoying both the things. But then that switch on, switch off was required for sure. So I mean, both are challenging, both are enjoyable if you are able to manage it. But not many people want to manage both, for sure. Because in the first place, if you are a professional interpreter, then you have to travel a lot, actually. And if you're traveling, then there is no time to translate things, even if you like to translate. So because that's a myth that you can even do translation on your mobile phone, or I mean, people keep on saying that now, I mean, technology has evolved so much that you can do translation from anywhere. No, that's not possible. You have to have your own nice, peaceful setup to be a nice translator, actually. You cannot sit on a railway station and translate, because then that's definitely not possible for many. So probably Yoko-san uses her mobile phone for translation, maybe. Okay, so
Yeah.
would like to listen to her as well.
Yeah, nowadays, yeah, we can do the translation on mobile phone. Also, like, yes,
Yeah.
I'm sure like such is also possible, like just mobile phone and keyboard. And in fact, like I am such a person who was working even on my father's funeral, actually. So like my father passed away at that time. I already had my work. And then, but so my father was suffering from cancer, lung cancer, and then he was 1.5 years he was hospitalized, and so coming and going on. I was doing Japan, between Japan and India. And then when he passed away, that news came little bit suddenly, and already I had work. I was a little bit wondering what to do, because I had to immediately travel from Pune to Fukuoka. I had to travel. Anyway, I have time because anyway, I have to move. So, and in that time, I really downloaded a set of translation on my PC, and in airplane, I worked. So being a translator, I don't know if it is good or bad. I don't know. I cannot say. But I feel that time I feel better, because I was feeling like, okay, maybe my father also. If my father was very typical Japanese, maybe corporate worker, like person, he was really workaholic person. So maybe if he were me, he will also definitely do that. Commitment is there with customers. So, but yeah, interpretation, the very good about interpretation is you can meet many different people, like Narendra Modi, like prime minister, like person. Also, you can meet a very beautiful personality, and you can learn very much. So very good language job is always very exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, that was my second part, actually. I mean, you get to meet many people. That's what I also wanted to say. I got lots of opportunities to meet different people. And when you're interpreting, well, Gemba interpretation is one thing, where you are interpreting for people who use machines, for example, or who are actually working at the Gemba as such. But then most of the times, if you're doing corporate interpretations or diplomatic level interpretation, then you're getting opportunities to meet people with a completely different stature, actually. And such networking can help you a lot to grow from different angles. So that beauty or that attraction of interpretation is always there, which you may not get in translation, for sure.
Ms. Rumi wants to say something, I guess.
I would also like to share the experience, as many people are sitting here, like they would like to know why I prefer interpretation more than translation. As Salil San rightly said, that you meet lots and lots of people, and you get to travel to places where you can't even afford with your own money. For example, I have done interpretation for industrialist Mr. Gautam Singhania of Raymond's group. I sat with him at the private jet. I went to, with all the places. I also did an interpretation for a cosmetic company in Japan. So they hired a personal onsen hotel, and I also been to a 300-year hotel, all because of them. Thanks to the interpretation, my father traveled all. He was working as an interpreter for freelance project for a tea company. So with him, he went to all the places like Assam, Darjeeling, Himalayas. We never used to have to pay money from your own pocket, accommodation, everything they pay. So interpretation is very, very fun job. Like you get to meet a lot of people, you get to earn money, and you get to learn also. Like I also did an interpretation for a surrogacy for a PhD scholar from Japan. So right from going to all the different surrogate doctors right from the hospitals, I even took interview for the ladies of the slum area who had become surrogate mother. So my experience of working with them is not only the language interpretation, but you also get to know a vast immense of knowledge when you're going to different places, different factories, what they are doing, how they work. So these kind of knowledge you get, and it's a very, very fun job, I would say. Good work.
Thank you for sharing your experiences.
Welcome.
So actually we are running short on time. So before going or ending this interview, I would like to want to know from our panelists. There's a question like we have initiated to build a directory, bilingual directory, where irrespective of field, a person can register themselves in that. And the motive is just to collect the data which is in a very scattered way. There's no data I can say where a person who wants to hire or wants to get hired can be seen at a one place. So what is your opinion on that? I would like to start with Ms. Rumi.
Yes, I think it's a very good start. Very good idea, because many of my students and many of the people who know Japanese ask me like where to start, how to go about it, how do companies get to know about us. So I think it's a very good thing. It's a good start here.
So any suggestion you want to give on that?
Yes, like you can as in the directory you can mention their CVs and all the details, so they can able to contact the right person, right candidate. So.
Sure. And Mr. Salil, what's your opinion on this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that kind of an initiative is always welcome. So, and if that's happening in India, then we should feel very proud and happy about it, because India kind of has lagged a bit in this industry. I mean, we have very good translators, but collecting them all and then digitizing the data and then making it available for both the clients as well as for the translators themselves, that has not been done much in India as such. So if IJBC is planning to do that, then that's definitely a welcome activity for sure. And as Rumi-san also said, of course, you can, curate that data and put the curated data such that, there is no noise in the data. So that kind of effort will be required on your part. But then at least you should start somewhere. And if you're starting, then that's a nice idea for sure.
Sure. Yoko, Miss Yoko, what's your opinion on this?
Thank you. Yeah, in fact, I keep getting such inquiry from Japanese customers or sometimes my friends or people that we want to visit India and we need interpretation, and then so do you know anybody? So now today I'm very much sure to like so Mumbai then Rumis and then Pune Sariru-san, like definitely I can recommend. But so like such a way, so directory will work like okay. So we have to look for so like it's very rare. People really want to visit India from Japan. Many people want to really visit India, but then, oh, what to do about language? Like, and some people may want to really remote place, like inside a place. And then, so we need really somebody who can speak local language. And then, so until now, really, people are not sure to whom I should contact, and then to whom I should like trust and such. So this directory can guarantee, like, I think this directory may give sort of maybe rating system also, like maybe so somebody who like customer and service provider both register them, and like such kind of platform which pros is so like exactly like that, and so that people will know that okay, so this person looks like many things he have done before, so maybe we can trust him also. Or like we just need a sort of guide, local guide come with interpretation. So then maybe this junior person is also enough, like so such kind of like information platform. So so that people will feel encouraged to visit from Japan. Like okay, so if we need a translate, if we need an interpreter, but particularly interpreters demands are high, because they are visiting India, right? So okay, so if when it comes to interpreter, then we have to just look for IJBC where all information and people are available, and so on. So like maybe chat function or something. So like interactive function, if we can do it, then I think that's good. Very quick, we can communicate. Yes. Thank you.
Sure. We are open for Q&A session. So if anybody wants to ask the question from our panelists, so they can unmute themselves, or they can also drop the question in chat box.
Is there any short-term courses for interpretation and translation in Japanese, either in India or Japanese?
Like interpretation course is definitely there. In Japan, what was it? University? I forgot, but I think handful of universities in Japan provide interpretation course, and translation. It's not so many. I think translation course. I think more outside of Japan providing. I'm sure like 1-2 university I know that translation course is there, but so interpretation school is there, not university. School. I don't know if they provide online course. Do you have any idea, Sariru-san? Do you have?
Yeah, in Japan, Simul International is a nice institute actually.
Simul, yes. I know very much. It's big institute, right?
Yeah, I've been to Simul.
Simul International.
Yeah, Simul International teaches both interpretation as well as translation.
This spelling is correct. Simul.
Yeah, it is SIMUL. Yes.
Okay.
It comes from simultaneous interpretation actually. So,
so it's a very well-known institution. Yes.
And many, I've been prominent in university in Japan and in India as well. They offer courses in translation and interpretation. As I mentioned earlier, even JNU has it. JNU also, and DU, Delhi University also has it. And then a couple of universities in Calcutta also, they offer a translation and interpretation. A couple of them in Hyderabad, for example, IFLU, for example, they have translation course. So yes, there are universities coming up in India as well now. But unfortunately, there is no institute like Simul International in India yet. So IJBC probably may want to take up that in India. That can be a nice initiative actually. Yeah.
Sure. There's one question from Ms. Aditi Jan. At what JLPT level can we start applying for a job?
For translators, if you have passed N3, then you can start applying. There are two reasons, because basically companies want N3 basically, but then forget what companies need. The grammar that is covered in N3 is sufficient enough to become a translator. Because as I said earlier, causative passive is the last thing that one should know as far as translation is concerned. And N3 covers that. So if you have done your N3 really seriously, and if you are very comfortable about Saserareru, then you can start translating, is what I definitely think. Because N2 and N1, what we learn at N2 and N1 is not grammar, these are expressions actually. So you can keep on polishing your language by doing N2 and N1, but it's not mandatory. So if you have done your N3 seriously, then you are already, you can start the career as a translator. But again, I mean, there are so many other conditions like reading a lot and all such things, but as far as JLPT level is concerned, N3. Yeah.
Anything you want to add, Ms. Rumi?
As per my experience, a lot of recruiters contact me. I'll give you an honest, practical scenario of the situation. Like I have recruiters contacting him saying me that we have taken interviews of level 2 and level 1 certificate people also, but they are not able to speak. So all I want to say, I keep on saying this to my students when I'm training them, that I know certificates are very important for you to get hired. An Indian person will definitely, certificate is mandatory to get hired in a company. But as most of the companies will ask for level 3 proficiency. So if you have a level 3 proficiency, you can start a career as a translator. But I think the practical brushing up of skill is what is required. So there are people where we have sent level 2, level 1 people for work, and the Japanese calling me up and saying, "Usko kuch bhi samajh mein nahi aa raha, he doesn't know how to interpret." So at the end of the day, certificates are important, but your practical fluency is very, very important to become a successful translator, is what I feel like.
Sure. So we are waiting for questions. So anyone wants to ask? So there's one from Apurva Banerjee. How should one start looking for jobs in interpretation and translation field? Okay. So Ms. Rumi, you want to answer that?
Yes, actually most of the students, they put their profiles on. I'm not from recruitment, so I don't think I'm the right person to answer, but as per my knowledge, most of the students put their profile in all the job companies like Naukri.com. They do have some Japanese people and all, or with the word of mouth, they also Japanese companies contact me that do you have a N3 N2 people in from your institute. So as a word of mouth, people get jobs, or by putting your profile in the Naukri.com or such, as that's how they get work. Like, so this directory thing that you would be introducing would be a very good initiative for translators. Yes.
So Mr. Mangesh is asking, can bilingual engineers become good interpreter or translator? I think Mr. Salim, you should answer this question.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, being a bilingual engineer is definitely an amazing skill. But if you don't like coding, or if you don't like engineering, then you should think about becoming a translator or interpreter. If your main focus is on coding or engineering, then there is no, reason why you should think of becoming an interpreter or translator, because it's a completely different focus. You'll have to basically stop doing your engineering thing, because translation interpretation, initially it seems that you can do it part-time, but when you actually get into it, then it becomes so very overwhelming that you have to dedicate your entire life to it. You need to keep on learning the things. But yes, I mean, the straight question to it is yes, definitely yes. But then you also have to have that mentality or that psyche of becoming a translator or interpreter. and that requires a completely different training altogether. So it's not that just because you know the technology and you know 2 languages, you can start doing interpretation. It's not that, for sure. You need to get trained, but it's an added advantage. Yes.
Thank you, Sunil Sensei. We have last question we will take because we are running out of time. Okay, there is one interesting question we have got, that how about jobs in hospitality industry as an interpreter? Maybe Rami-san or Sunil Sensei, both of you, we can ask.
Yes, like I remember, I have trained 300 hotel staff of a reputed hotel company in Mumbai. So this was in a Japanese hospitality management called Omotenashi. So definitely there are a lot of Japanese, like there was this Japan railway project coming up, and there was huge number of Japanese delegates coming to the hotel of India. So they didn't want us to train in the language, but they wanted us to train in their hospitality mannerism, etiquettes and all. So whether you are a chef, I know there are 2-3 chefs from hotel industry gone to Japan, and even the I think any industry, not only hotel industry, like even if you don't want to make a career as an interpreter, translator, whatever industry you're from, for example, you're from law. I know a corporate lawyer wants to have many Japanese clients, and the Japanese language becomes added benefit to them. So therefore, even in the hospitality industry, whether Japanese coming to India or Indians going to Japan, so a language is something that makes you comfortable. So I guess it's to any field, it would be added qualification like that.
Thank you. Yes, Sunil Sensei.
Yeah, I mean, see, we had tried this actually. I mean, 5-6 years back, contacting different hotels in India to start with, if they need people with a particular language skill. It was not just about Japanese, but any other, French, German for that matter, but for language person. But then there was no such requirement. I mean, no hotel wants to hire such people. But if you are registered with them, then if the need arises, then they definitely contact you. But then you cannot depend on that as a source of your income, for sure. You just need to, I mean, keep on waiting for such calls. So it's call based basically, because I at least don't know any hotel that hires people with I mean multiple polyglots basically, right? I mean, there are some hotels that do that, but then I mean, very rare. Yes.
Yes, Ravi-san.
Yes, actually, especially where there is a lot of Japanese business, where there's a lot of like Delhi, I've heard there are lots and lots of community buildings of Japanese people staying in Delhi, like they call it as banchi. So there are a lot of hotels, and where there is a lot of Japanese people, hotel industry is there. So definitely, if you are somebody who has got a hotel management degree with the added Japanese language skills, then you have a very good chance of getting hired. So like that. In fact, we have recruited one girl to a reputed hotel in Mumbai. Now she's moved to Hilton, Tokyo, as a front office Japanese interpreter. So there are many opportunities, and it's not a waste. And nothing learning anything is not a waste. So it will be helpful.
But I also heard that sometimes, like some customers are not so good customer. That like for interpreters, like if it were a girl, like this is I hear many times from a Japanese counterpart, like Japanese colleagues, that like if you are a woman and interpreter, then some customer naturally expect that person to attend for dinner and then do some sort of serving the sake and such. So that we should be like very much like clear about your work. What is it? Roles, like my role is translation. I'm not going to attend your dinner or something. Of course, like attending dinner for interpretation is okay, but like I'm not going to serve or something like entertaining, like that's not. So like some people confuse it. So that is a bit dangerous factor, like as a woman still like unfortunately I don't want to too much speak bad about Japan, but unfortunately Japan also very much male dominated country yet. So like so if you are a woman, then always you need to be aware about this factor that being a translator means you are very much exciting career to go everywhere, attend anybody, but then some people are not so good people, so that part we need to be aware. Yes.
Yes, thank you very much. And indeed, it was very helpful and important discussion, I guess, we had for bilinguals and for the students who will embark upon a new journey from now. So there is one well-known quote I would like to share here, that doctors are your lifesavers, lawyers are your advocates, and translator and interpreters are your voices. So on behalf of IJBC and from the audience side, I am thankful to our three voice representative here for accepting our request and guiding us through this discussion. Yoko-san, Salil Sensei, and Rumi-san, thank you very much. Thanks to the whole IJBC team for organizing such a great event. Asking right questions to the panelists is also most important thing. And thanks Shefali for taking this session to the right direction and making it more interactive. Thanks our sponsors, tutorbharat.com, Interjust India, Daiichi Japanese Language Solution Nagpur. Thanks to our event partners, Shimbi Lab, Nanobiz Rao and MR, Wab and Company, Ichiban Enterprises, Asian Community News, The Lingo, and KU University. These events can happen only because of you. I thank all translators, interpreters, bilingual students who are participated in this session, and I'm sure it would be definitely helpful for you. I once again thanks to everyone who is directly and indirectly involved to this session. I would say this session is concluded for today, but again, we are going to come back with a very interesting interview, fireside chat with Shefali. The guest is Chef Brihadish Kumar, who is a co-owner and the head chef at Ginkgo, Japanese restaurant in Kothur, Pune. So this interview will be on 12th of March, 4 p.m. and you can watch this interview on IJBC's YouTube channel. And to register our bilingual directly, we have sent the link in chat box, as well as you can visit the website www.ijbc.org. So till then, stay tuned, stay happy, stay healthy, and thank you very much. Minasan domo arigatou gozaimashita.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Rumi-san. Thank you, Sariru-san. Thank you, Daniel-san.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Arigatou gozaimasu. It was very nice time.
Nice talking to you.
Yeah, nice talking. I really want to